Blog Talk Radio.
Archangels, ghosts, and Bigfoot, oh my. It's just another night for Supernatural Girls. Real stories, real answers to life's biggest supernatural mysteries. And now for another exciting interview with paranormal experts from this world and others. Here's your host, paranormal researcher Patricia Baker, on the one, the only, Supernatural Girls.
Welcome, everyone, to another exciting episode of Supernatural Girls Radio. I am your host, Patricia Baker, and I am here on this snowy evening in the Berkshires, and it is January 25th already, and I'm here, of course, with my co-host, PK. PK, how you doing tonight?
Absolutely fabulous. You've got the snow, and I've got a little sunshine today. I'll take it.
Yeah. That's great. And I wanted flurries. That's unbelievable to me. No flurries in Tucson. In Tucson.
Right, but they were like little pin dots coming down. I thought, oh my God. But it was nice to see momentarily, and it was gone, and I was grateful because I remember why I came to Tucson.
That's the best part. Yeah, and when it's gone, it's like,
Definitely.
Oh, it's beautiful. Goodbye.
No shovel,
I know, we've got a lot.
Made it even better.
Right. That's right. I mean, we've got ice. I cannot even leave my house because the driveway is solid ice. So I'm praying that it will get up above freezing and the sun will come out.
Well, you could just stand in your driveway, sit in your car, and let it slide down like a snow.
Yeah.
Like a snow.
Yeah. Except there's that part where it can go off the edge and over the cliff. That part, no. I think I'll wait. But the reason I'm also mentioning the date to everybody is, as you know, we're coming to the end of the month, and property owners, this is your last warning.
That's right.
This is the time. You've got to get your abatement in. If you have found any errors or you have any concerns about your assessment of your property, you have only, at least in Massachusetts and most other states, until the end of January to file an abatement. Mm-hmm. Now, I suggest, if you have any questions about your assessment, you file the abatement and then get a hold of Patricia Quintilian's book, Are You Getting Screwed on Your Property Taxes? How to Find Out and How to Fix It. It's a step-by-step, and Attorney Quintilian gives you great information so that you know how to file these abatements and what to look for. I mean, I had an email from someone just the other day who said, I'm so glad that I listened to you and I got my property record card because I looked at it. And right there in front of me was a screened-in porch on my house that I was being taxed on. And you know what? I don't have a screened-in porch. So, surprise, surprise, this is why you need to look at your card, make sure it's accurate, and if it isn't, you need to talk to the assessors, see if you can work with them at the local level, and get things made proper on your card. Now, you may also contest your assessment because a lot of assessments have gone way up, like everything else. So you have to make sure that that's accurate as well. So I want to encourage everybody, get your property record card, get the book. You can also go online and find out more information about how to do this, and you can also ask other people for help, like me, who has been down this road before, and I know how to do this stuff. Mm-hmm. But I'm sure you will not like paying taxes you really don't owe, and this is the only way with your property that you'll be able to get it straightened out. And there are very strict deadlines, so you don't want to miss this one, because if you miss this one, then you're done for the whole year, and you can't go back and try to get the money that you were owed. It's like a one-time deal every year. So that's my advice. And now I want to hear your advice, PK. What do you got? Oh, and before you even say anything, I just have to say this. Our guest from last week who did not show up, Bishop Long, did call me And he said he was very sorry. He was called out to give last rites in a rural area of Kentucky, and he had no cell service and no way to contact us and let us know that he was being held up, or that he could even talk to us on the phone and do the interview where he was. He couldn't. So we'll see about a later time that we may be able to get him back. But he apologized to everybody, because I know you were all looking forward to hearing from him, as we were. But our guest tonight is here. He was right on time, and he's ready to go.
Yes.
And he's one of our favorite people because he is great. He's an expert. He's an author. You've heard from him before, so we'll bring him on in just a couple minutes. So, PK, tell us what's happening. What's your advice for all of us coming up into February almost?
Well, I'm just going to do a tail end for this month, because the Chinese New Year, we were talking about some going on the Chinese astrology. So this is the year of the rabbit right now. So it's going to bring hope and prosperity, which is good, since we are in a universal 7, which deals with our finances and putting things together. This month is an 8. So it's all about money. So I thought this would be a good place to go, because it starts with the New Year. It's going to kick off. It's the second moon, the winter solstice, which was Sunday, January 22nd. That's when it started. And in the Chinese astrology, there are 12 astrological signs, but there are also 5 zodiac elements. So it's the year of water, and water is very much a strong element. So the rabbit deals with creativity, appreciation for the arts. So you're going to find yourself being pulled towards exploration, say maybe going to a museum, some music festivals, or some art type shows. By all means, if you feel it, go. It's important that you do. Because 2023, the zodiac element being water, signifies travel and movement. So get out and about and enjoy what's out there for us. The Chinese zodiac signs that will have a great year are those that are compatible with the rabbit. Those are namely the sheep, the dog, or the pig. These signs will see a wealth of opportunities, careers, relationships, all kinds of creativity. The pig and the rabbit are perfect matches. Dragons, snakes, roosters, and rats, they're going to clash with the rabbit this year. So we've got a chance of figuring out new things and new ways of finding out who we are, with another element to show us more information about who we are, what goes on around us. So I thought Chinese astrology is a good place to take a peek and see how it affects what our personal stuff is that we consider our usual astrological looks. So,
I love the
I've got to throw in the numbers.
Yeah.
Everything goes back to the numbers. But so this is going to be a very interesting time. And we're just about going into a 9 month. So come February, we're wrapping up a lot of things. So get yourselves prepared, people. Make a list of things that you want to get rid of. Let us know what they are so we can take a look at how we can help you find a better answer.
Yes.
That's my tidbit for tonight.
Well, that is excellent. Thank you so much. That is great. So, okay, last time we had Don on the show, we had so much fun. We talked about his book, which was brand new at the time, about vampires, energy vampires. That was an excellent, I love that book. It's one of my favorite books, and I know you loved it too. And we just had a great time exploring that whole subject. Now, Don has a new book. And this is great timing, too, because it's very much tied up with knowing who you are. This is your guide to becoming a modern Magus. Now, Don joined the Temple of Set in 1989, where he served as high priest for 6 years and is recognized as, and I'm not going to say this correctly, I'm just going to say it, Ipsissimus. He is the author of several books on left-hand path practice and philosophy, including the one I just mentioned, Energy Magick of the Vampyre. He lives in Austin, Texas. Now, I was reading over his book reviews, and I'll tell you what, people love this book. Now, here's one of them. I just got to read it to you because it's so great. It says, "This is not a book. It is the cauldron of the Magus Don Webb, into which he has poured a wealth of his experience, knowledge, and the practice of the magical arts. Dipping into it will more than stir your imagination. It will slake your thirst to know more. And that was written by Judith Page Station, artist and author of My Inner Guide to Egypt. I just love that. It's such a beautiful way to talk about this great book. So, Don, welcome to the show. We're so happy to have you here.
Well, as always, I'm glad to be here. It was a really great time when I was here before. So I really like your show and I like your guests. So I was thrilled when you guys sent me a note saying you'd have me again.
Well, thank you. And I know you have been through COVID, as so many people, and you have recovered enough to join us tonight. And we're so grateful that you have enough energy, so after all that, to be with us tonight and talk about this book, The Modern Magus. So tell us how you came up with this idea. Why did you think this was a book you should write right now?
Well, it only took me 27 years to write the book. And I'll tell you what happened.
Oh, my goodness.
27 years ago, I wrote a book called Uncle Set Knock's Essential Guide to the Left-Hand Path. And one of the things I said in the paragraphs of that book is I said, there are no good general books on magical initiation. Until I write Uncle Set Knock's Magical Boot Camp, you guys are just going to have to be on your own. And I had no intention of ever writing this. Well, like the first month after my book was out there, someone said, "Hey, when are you going to write your boot camp book?" And I was like, I don't even know. I don't even know how to do that. Well, a few years ago, when we all spent a year inside, as I'm sure you remember, I could really think about what did I need to learn in order to practice magic, and I wanted to write a book that was for the general population, not for the sort of darker left-hand path side of things, but just for anyone that practices. And, of course, I know hundreds of practitioners in different systems, and so I just started saying, hey, what do you know, what works, what doesn't work, and then I created the book. Of course, I did all the exercises to see, if they were in the right order, and then I cast this book into the world.
Well, it's really a fascinating book, but it is a guide, which is even better because you actually have something to work with through the whole year to do your practices, set up your rites, do everything. And you even have something on consecrating candles and, some of the basics. So it's really, really helpful. Now, here's a question that we get a lot. What can people expect from doing this type of practice? How does it change your life? How does it change your path? Or how does it enhance you? What does it do for you?
Well, one of the things that's true about magic, and this is not generally what's said in the commercial world of selling occult books, but it's true. Magic destabilizes. Magic will change your relationship to the universe. Now, if you're trying to find out, as you said earlier in this program, who you are, it's an excellent tool because you can actually say, all right, how am I different than the experiences I've had all of my life? And you can begin to discover what you like, what you don't like, what your own feelings are. And then throughout this book, I went out of my way not to give my opinion on a lot of things, but I gave people 12 sets of questions that they could answer. They could answer after they've done the work and come up with their own ethics and belief and practice. Because I don't want to hand people myself. I don't want to, just Xerox Don Webb. It's kind of an awful thought. But I like the idea of Xeroxing critical thinking.
Right.
Interesting.
Also, I think with the wide variety of techniques I talk about, because I put aside basically here's a year's guide, there'll be something new for almost everybody, something they've never tried before, and some sense of how these things might fit together. So I assume that you start with a working brain and you're going to go out and start buying tools. Now, a lot of people, of course, already have these things, but I thought, what would I start with if I were creating this book for the 23-year-old me as opposed to the 62-year-old me.
So,
makes a big difference.
What I like about your book is, like you said, there's something for everybody. It says it's a manual for magicians of all schools. So that's very inclusive. It's a very nice approach for everybody who's involved in this and who wants to become involved in this. And it's from looking at the book, again, it doesn't seem to be that hard to do, right? There's nothing here that's too complicated. I mean, you're using things that you've used probably before, just in your daily life, like candles and things like that.
Yeah, I think one of the problems, and I have a section in the book where I talk about what I call it, dangers of the occult world, is a lot of people early in their practice spend way too much money on tools because, they're pretty, or they think the tool is what does it. What does it is your own psyche. The tools are really good props. So if you're doing something using a dagger, it doesn't have to be a bejeweled, one-of-a-kind dagger. It has to be something that you personally can identify with during magical work.
Yeah, and I've been told that it could be basically just about anything, as long as you have a connection with it, a feeling for it, that it means something to you. Is that true?
That is true, because we spend our entire day in a variety of different mental states, from sometimes really deep trance we don't notice to being distracted by the world. And we interact and invest our energies and thoughts in a lot of things. Now, every human, regardless of what you think you believe, every human actually believes in magic, because there will be that one item that makes them feel lucky, or that teacup that belonged to grandmother, and every time you see it, you have certain feelings arising in your heart. We enchant things all the time. We just seldom know or think about what does that mean because we did that.
Well, yeah, so then that's a really good way to describe our connection with certain objects and how they evoke feelings within us. It's true. I know, Patricia, you were very close to your mom, so I know there's certain things you've mentioned that really make you feel close to her and have very good, warm, loving feelings. So that's very powerful.
Well, it's
are those gold earrings one of them?
Well, the gold earrings were one, and the other thing was a teacup that my grandmother brought from England when she came to the United States. She came with 6. One survived, the cup and the saucer, and I still have those. And
wow,
my grandmother, oh my God, every time I look at it, it's such a warm feeling because it meant so much to her that she would pack it and bring it on a ship with her. So little things mean
incredible.
a lot. We just don't realize how important they can be.
Yeah, and how we can use them in our practice. So you're right. We don't have to go out and buy expensive stuff. No. We can use the things sometimes that are right here with us already.
Well, that's a special part about it because it has the consistency of her homeland, things that she believed in, to carry enough to bring it with her and to cherish it all those years and not let it get broken by the 6 children she had or the great grandkids that I have. It's still with us to give us that special something.
Yeah. Oh, thank God. One's still with us today. It made it. John, what about the elements? Now, you talk in your book about fire and water and everything else. Explain, if you could, to the novice in our audience, what's the significance of working with the elements that way?
Well, in Western magic, for a really long time, I mean, it goes back to a Greek thinker called Ipsissimus, so kind of a guy about the same time as Plato. They divided the material world into 4 elements, which they said were earth, air, water, and fire. Now, of course, this is not a book about chemistry. I was going to divide it, book about chemistry. I would mention the 92 naturally occurring elements and the ones we've synthesized since then. But I'm talking about the psyche. How does the psyche work. And each of the elements has corresponding things in our psyche. Let's take fire. We all recognize the fiery parts of ourselves. Sometimes we really enjoy them, like if it's happening during great sex. Sometimes we don't enjoy it if we're really, really angry, or if we see that fire in someone else. But we actually understand parts of our psyche really well, just by even just observing fire. If you want to see what's really going on in your brain one night, turn off all the lights, light a candle, and just keep track of your thoughts for about 10 minutes. Because fire works really, really well to dig things out. Earth, the physical world, that has a lot of meaning too, whether it's earth in the form of wealth. Oh, here's my gold, here's my car, here's these things I can hold on to. Or it can be earth in terms of where you grow things, how do you bring forth nurturing things. Water is, of course, the best symbol for humans' emotions, because water changes and it's always in motion. And of course, water even leaks out of our eyes when we're particularly happy or sad. We can understand water. And then, of course, air, finally, this medium through which we send and receive messages. And air affects us in all kinds of ways. For example, as you both know, the greatest key to memory for a human being is smell. Right? You can catch a smell of someone you haven't seen in years, and the brain will immediately produce all the feelings associated with that. So we're already wired to have connections to those things, and I start the book with those things because they're more familiar if you're dealing in the Western European tradition. If you were brought up differently, like, for example, in China, there's the 5 elements, and there's a different set of meaning for them. Or there would be different elements for other cultural milieus. But I was mainly writing to people that are probably from the Western tradition. So I started with something that more known to them, more familiar. And then as the book progresses, I get into things further away from that tradition.
Right. Yeah, no, that would make sense the way you did that too. And it's so easy to follow. So like I said, any novice can pick up this book and start working with it and really develop some skills that are essential excuse me, and powerful.
Definitely.
And in this magical world of ours. I've got a question about working with deities also, because, again, as I told you, we were still waiting for the book. But do you talk about that in the book, your book?
I talk about that a lot. In fact, I organize the 12 chapters that are the actual manual after a deity each month, who I pick that deity because of what he or she represents. And also, throughout the book, I say, here's a lot of different threads you can follow. Like, let's say you're reading one of the chapters on Egyptian magic, and you notice that it's named after Horus or Anubis or the great Isis. Well, there's tons of things you can follow about that. And I also try to help people have access to better sources. After all, if I'm looking around at my house library now with its, I would guess, about 3,000 volumes, I'm bound to have come across some things that are pretty good over the years.
Yeah.
I think so.
Wow. 3,000 books. Oh, my goodness. Yeah. Well, here's a question, and I this is a little off topic in some ways, and I'm involved in a group, and we contact certain entities every week. And at one point, this is probably last year when we were working together, some of the old, I'm going to call them old gods, showed up. Very unusual, very interesting. I hadn't had any experience with them before. Have you had experience with the old gods? And I'm talking about like Mercury in a physical form. Have you ever heard of that or worked with that?
Oh, sure, of course. Any ceremonial magician should be able to call up, even even visibly, if you're doing the work really in great depth, any of these archetypical forms. And Mercury in particular, whom I probably know better under his Greek name of Hermes, is, the patron of the magical arts, period. That's, basically the realm that he's in charge of. And human beings have been using these archetypes for thousands of years, to the extent, of course, that they're not passive. The gods have their own opinions and own agendas.
They
which
do.
Can be surprising, because a lot of magicians think, well, I'm gonna call up this guy and then he's going to do my work for me. Well, no, I called her up and she has her own agenda. Let's take the Great Mother. The absolute Egyptian mother deity is the deity that we call Isis, because the Egyptians themselves would have called her Aset, but we call her Isis for a lot of historical reasons. You're not going to work with Isis if you're doing anything that's not incredibly pro-motherhood. She is the protector of children, and that's why she was popular a long ways away from Egypt. I mean, there were temples to Isis in London because they said this Egyptian deity, she has the mother vibe. Or, if you deal with somebody like Horus, a god of leadership. The pharaoh was always Horus. And so he's a good archetype to know if you're interested in matters of rulership and making informed decisions as a ruler. Right.
Yeah, some of these entities I didn't really recognize. I mean, I'm not as learned as you by any means on all of these deities and their full form, and what they actually do. But it was surprising and absolutely true that they have their own agenda, their own, I don't want to call it a personality, but it's something that's similar to that. So you're right. I don't see any magician leading any of these guys or gals around by their nose and saying, do what I ask. I just don't see it. But I don't know. Maybe it can happen, but I don't see it. They're awfully powerful. I mean, when Mercury showed up, he was a power figure. I mean, he was physically powerful and mentally powerful, in every way powerful. So, yeah, I agree with what you have to say about that. It's not like ordering them around. So what do you hope for? What do you hope for when you call upon these deities in your magical work? You're working with them as a partner, or how would you describe it?
Well, the relationship that everyone finds with the gods is a very personal relationship. But if you want to invoke a god or a goddess, you should consider all the different ways you have relationship with someone. I mean, one relationship could be as slave to master, like, the god's in charge. Or the relationship could be as friends or equals or relations, or even, maybe you're in a position of particular power, you can order this person. But then to find any of those things, you've got to look inside yourself and say, what's my relationship with this idea? And that means not just mentally like, I'm going to think about that for about 10 minutes. It means you probably don't know. And it's going to really radically surprise you in some ways. Magic should never be about confirming what you know. It should be about discovering the wonder of how much you don't know.
Wow, that's great.
Definitely
well said. Yeah, because it was surprising to me when I saw, Mercury and then others. It was so different than what I had ever imagined. So, of course, then when you're sitting there with something like that, then what do you do next? And you said, well, you can go inside and ask what your relationship is with them. And it's, I'll tell you, it really adjusted, use that word, adjusted my perception of Mercury and his friends that came to visit. So it's an expansion in a lot of ways, working with this energy.
Well, one hopes as you approach things magically that it's always going to be something bigger than you. If it's something smaller than you, you're wasting your time. But eventually you learn the great secret, and the great secret is you are so much bigger than you think you are. Because everything that Mercury showed you when he appeared, you had the capacity in yourself to understand and to perceive, even if you've never had that perception your entire life. So there's always a moment where there's an old Hindu saying, well, I shouldn't say Hindu, that's actually a colonialist term. There's an old saying among Shaivites, which is, to worship Shiva, you must first become Shiva. And almost most of the methodologies, particularly in Shaivite Tantra, which I've kind of hung around in for a few decades, are about becoming Shiva so that you can actually worship and understand him. And that's a tough thing, because that doesn't mean that you're that same entity the moment the ritual is over. You're the same guy that's having to pay taxes and get your car started and all these things. But you're also a divine entity, and spend most of your time forgetting that.
That's for sure.
Yep.
That's for sure. And I think that's why and it's so surprising when I see things like that, and when I interact with things like that, beings like that. But you're right. We do forget that we really put ourselves on a low level a lot of time. So these other entities seem above us, and they're really not, are they?
Well, they are in the one level, because the fact that you and I and all the incarnate beings that are listening to tonight's program are very much in the world of, 4 dimensions and 5 senses, and we perceive time in a certain way, and we perceive, physical things in a certain fashion. So dealing with magical power is to make you think about, what am I going to be when I am no longer incarnate?
Right.
What are you going to be like when you don't have your body? And, of course, the next thing that you should learn is not to hate the body, say, the body is a limitation, but to say, wow, this is the gateway to everything. The last tool that I have people consecrate through my year's worth of practice, isn't a candle or a cup or a bell. It's the body, because your body is ultimately the best magical tool you have. But it just takes a while to get up to where you're like, I'm going to really let that happen. I'm going to more deeply incarnate rather than say I'm going to draw away from those things.
So, for you, I mean, you were a high priest for so many years, and I mean, you've been doing daily practice for even longer. Can you share with us any experiences that you've had in magical practice that expanded your thinking, your consciousness, or really surprised you in some way?
Well, I can, and in fact, I talk about this particular incident in my book. Generally, as a ceremonial magician, I think of myself as going out to meet magic. I'm going to do something and cause magic to be in my life. But some years ago, I went to my hometown of Amarillo, and I had been on vacation. And my mother, who, when she was alive, was a terrible liar about her health, did not tell me that she was having some serious health issues.
No.
She just said she was having minor surgical work. And when I arrived, get off the plane, I go and discover this is not in any way minor. And she and I talked about why it's hard to talk about certain things, in a parent-child relationship. And she began talking about the hospital we were in. And the hospital happened to be built on the farm that her dad used to sharecrop.
Wow.
And before the hospital was built, it was a place I used to go as a young magician and do this kind of shamanic work. And so as as Mom went to sleep and I went out to the parking lot and kind of trying to wake up, I thought about the number of times this small area of land had radically interacted with my family. And so my entire ritual was basically, I looked up at the night sky. I said, hey, if you have anything else you need to tell me, tell it to me now. I don't know if I'm going to be back here. And this was obviously a ritual without bells and candles and correct incense and, interesting chants in other languages. And as I began to drive home that night, I had a moment of transmission. So I got home and I wrote out 5 pages on a legal pad, no idea what to do with it, other than I knew in many ways it affected my magical life all the way afterward because it was a true mystery. It's like, wow, this is not something that happened to someone else. That happened to me. There is in my handwriting. And there was that moment when I realized that I was at the point where I could receive that sort of message. Now, if you get a message in divine language, it's not going to be easy. It's going to be hard to figure out what it means.
Right. Yeah.
Because they have a greater economy of linguistic forms than we do. And the book was interesting. I called it the Book of the Hebsed. It talked about an Egyptian ritual and says, hey, you need to look into this, and I did. And later took my practice and shared it with the Temple of Set as a whole, saying, hey, here's this. But the interesting thing was, it wasn't just my creation. Once the spiritual voice had spoken, then I had to do the hard scholarly work, finding dissertations on this topic and learning to, read hieroglyphs at least a little bit and all the things. But every time I mined in the spot that the book pointed to, I found wonderful and transformative things.
Wow,
and,
incredible.
This has happened to other people. Obviously Crowley had the same experience in 1904. Is not an unusual thing for the gods to talk to you, but they're not going to talk very often. They're not going to email you.
They're not going to say that again? Oh, darn it.
Did it again.
Wow, that does pose a problem. And they're not going to speak your language, is what you're saying, too. They're going to speak in their own language.
They're going to speak, obviously it was, fortunately in my little transmission was mainly in English, although there was one phrase I had to look up from classical Egyptian. But it's going to be in their own language. I'm going to give you an example, then I'm going to step away for a moment because I have a little errand to run here. I'll be right back. But here's the example.
Yep, sure. Okay.
Here's how I explain divine language. I had a friend, I was giving a talk about this once, and he said, look, I don't get it. What do you mean? How do you mean it's different? And so I finally said, look, you're an air traffic controller. He says, yeah. I said, could you come up with about a good 15-minute explanation of what being an air traffic controller was? And he said, well, yeah, I have to do that when I train people all the time. I said, okay, so you got that explanation in your brain? All right, now imagine you're giving that explanation to a 3-year-old.
Oh, my goodness, what a challenge.
That's the gap, between, divine language and human language. I'm going to go run a little medical errand.
Yes, please.
And I'll be right back.
Yes,
definitely.
We will wait for you. Thank you, Don.
Definitely.
This is what an exciting way of thinking about life. I know, definitely. And all these other entities that are around us, if we want them to be. I guess they are anyways, but most of the time we don't notice. But yeah, that thing that happened with Mercury was very powerful. He's quite large in stature and took me by surprise for sure. So, but Don is a scholar. He goes way beyond just the practice. He is, as you can tell from listening, the 2 times we've had him on the show, he just knows so much about the history background, the archaeology of it all, I guess I could say. Yeah, and it makes it fascinating beyond belief. Yeah.
Most of us know so little about these particular things, and when he puts it out there, he puts it in front of us. It's like those aha moments keep coming faster. It's amazing.
I know
the information that he has to offer us.
And it just makes me want to learn more, about all of this. And again, everybody, the name of the book is Your Guide to Becoming a Modern Magus. I'm just going to read a little bit of another review. I mean, his books get the best reviews ever. Many instruction manuals for building a magical practice leave out a few inconvenient truths. Like becoming a better magician is hard work. Not everything will go your way, regardless of how well you follow the instructions. And most importantly, unless you work first and foremost to transform yourself, your ability to cause change in the world will be limited. Don Webb thinks you are ready to handle these truths and has given you an honest roadmap. To point the way, he has created an innovative guidebook that stresses that magic must work with the whole self. All of your hopes, experiences, fears, desires, even when that work may be hard or uncomfortable. It is the rare book that is indispensable for both beginners and seasoned practitioners alike, regardless of their school or style. Don Webb is one of the very few authors on practical magic who can truly pull off this difficult task. Whatever your approach is, this book will help you make it better. What a great review. And that was by Toby Chappelle.
I know. I really like that. Yeah, I actually have met Toby, who is in himself a fairly formidable magician. One of the big secrets that he's referring to is, if you want your magic to work, your life has to be enchantable. And a lot of people never think about, how can I make my life enchantable? Let's take the little simple thing, right? People always, I want to do a ritual for money. Okay, they do their money ritual, and then their boss calls them in next week and says, you're going to have a lot of overtime the next 3 months. And they think, wait a minute, that's not what I wanted to do. But then I say, how is the money, is your life like financially enchantable? Do you run your own business? Do you sell stuff? Do you have some ways that money can get to you? Because if you don't, if there's no channels there, the money isn't going to fall. The gangster's not going to drive by and toss out the briefcase full of money at your feet or whatever. Or if you want my day. Right? If you want love, you have to be able to be in a place you can go and find love. And that's not easy. You will not do a ritual for a lover and have one come and knock at your door at midnight, being ready. Or, as I can sadly say from experience some years ago, that can happen, and you don't want that person.
Right.
I will not explain the rest of that story. But a lot of people take magic with the idea of it's just an entertainment, it's not going to work. And oftentimes they scare the heck out of themselves the first time they do something that actually produces a manifestation.
Yeah, I bet. Because it's true, a lot of people don't expect it to work, but they try it anyways, and then when it does. And like you said, it may not come in the form that you want, and there's a lot said about that. But again, affirmations are a form of magic, I guess, when you're putting your intent out there.
Oh, sure. I mean, that's actually one of the, that's one of the ways really sort of start, right, is that basically I'm going to frame myself and my world. And for the magician, there's usually not a sharp dividing point between those two things. Because your attitude and what you receive are very much linked together, particularly in your early part of your practice.
Now, your book is geared for the self. I mean, you're doing this for yourself, for your own personal transformation, expansion, whatever your goals are. And I know with magic, there's a lot said about, there's a school of thought that says you should only do magic for yourself. And then other people say, well, you can do it for yourself or you can do it for someone else. What do you think about that? What's your thought?
Well, I think that for human beings, you know, and the shape that human beings are now in, their evolution and so forth, magic has always been about your tribe, about your family. Mm-hmm. You know, and if you're just doing things for yourself, then probably there's maybe some problem with just your life. I want to be able to heal my family. I want to be able to help out my friends. And there's also the fact that magicians who do this kind of thing, you need to be able to do this and do it to a certain extent secretly, because some of your friends are not going to be thrilled by the idea.
Mm-hmm.
Good point.
Yeah, that's for sure. They won't be. Right. So, what advice do you have for people just starting out on the path? I mean, part of it is like I like what you're saying. You don't want to broadcast it everywhere. You want to really keep the energy close to you.
You know, the big thing I would say if you're starting out, the thing that will actually help you the most, and this is something that modern humans are not good at, is keep your own private record. Write down what you do, write down your impressions, your dreams, whatever, so that you can find out, am I producing results in the world? Am I producing results in my own head? What works well? What doesn't work well? And when you decide to seek a teacher, then you can tell things to that man or that woman that can be your instructor. Because there's usually a place in your initiation where you need to go from what you personally know to getting someone outside your head that says, okay, let's think about that. Let's consider what the meaning of this is. The other thing I would tell someone who's beginning the practice, remember it's not just about what you do in terms of the magical art. It's about your life. If you have no place for beauty in your life, you're going to be a bad magician. I used to, for my personal students, my first question was been, hey, when's the last time you went to a gallery or a museum?
Ah.
And if they look like that, and if they look startled by that idea, I'm like, you probably need to start finding beauty in your life. And and how good are you at being uncomfortable? Because magic can sometimes put you in very uncomfortable, although ecstatic places.
Mm-hmm. And again, with some simple magical practice, let's say you're somewhere, you want to do your magical practice, but you left all your tools somewhere else, and you can still do that, just even without your tools, right? Just by yourself, sitting outside or inside, doesn't matter.
Yeah. Tools are there to help direct your thought. And as you become better at directing your thoughts, you don't need tools as much. We live in an age of hyper-distraction where people are distracted all the time. So sometimes it is really useful to say, all right, for my magical exercise, I am using a bell that starts it and a bell that ends it, just so that focuses my own mind on what the practice is.
Right. That makes sense. So it has it's attractive and it begins and ends, so it's contained. Yeah. Very, very interesting. Now, do you come from a long line of magicians?
Well, I don't have like a family tradition of it. But like anyone who's alive today, I'm descended from magicians that must have done something right and weren't eaten by the tiger.
Oh my!
You have that feeling about you that I know you're in our time right now, but you have this ancient world feeling about you. So that's why I had to ask. It's like, how far does this go back in your lineage?
Well, in for almost everyone that begins practicing the magical art, you will discover that there are relatives that either things were said about them, boy, you didn't want to get her mad, or bad things would happen, or there was something that was culturally appropriate. And since we come from a long line of, I'm mainly white, I'm white in Chickasaw, come from a long line of white people, there's not a lot of culturally appropriate magic, other than, big tendency for males in my family to be Freemasons for a few generations. But that's a pretty low dose of the gnosis.
Yeah. Huh. Well, it's fascinating, and I think adding, for anybody listening tonight who wants to give this a try, your book is just perfect. And what a wonderful way, to bring magic into your life with this type of a guidebook. So I think I recommend this. I know you do too, PK. We both recommend this book highly to people. And you are an expert, Don, so everything you're suggesting in it is well tested, and people can feel comfortable trying these exercises and figuring out their own practice, keeping their own diary, as you suggested, which is so important. You'll be able to write stuff down, what you're doing and your results. And it's, I know you have to tell everybody, look, you may not get the result you want, or you may not get results at all until you get to know yourself better, right? That's the key.
True enough. And then certain types of magic work more quickly or more slowly. In the second month of practice, which I devote to Earth, I give a materialization ritual, one that was originally made by a British writer called Osmond Spare. And I point out this takes about 6 months. Go do the work, make a note when you did it, and it's going to show up 6 months from now. And then that's a really startling thing for people because they will have long since forgotten what they did. And then actually there it is. Whereas other things you can change really quickly. Dream work, you can change what you dream tonight. I mean, that's not that hard a thing to get to. Hard to control well, but it's not that hard to get to. Well, again, in this world where everybody, not everybody, but a lot of people are really concerned about the rising prices of everything. They're concerned about money. And there are a lot of money rituals that can be done. Now, is that something that's a fast or a slow manifestation, or just does it depend on the person? Depends on, first off, how can the money get to you? How financially enchantable is your life? And also then a lot of it just depends on your willingness to do practice. Here, I'll tell you a money spell that will always work. Take $4 $1 bills. We like that. Okay. On the back of the $1 bill, write in any magical alphabet you know. You can look it up on the internet, the runes in Theban, and what it just any kind of cryptic form. Money comes to me. $4. Go out and find in the next week 4 people that you see begging for money on the side of the road, and hand one of them to each of them. And within a month, suddenly you will have an unexpected source of magic, an unexpected source of money. But wow, is it my magic that did that? Because hey, I just won this little drawing, or a friend of mine gave me something, or I found it. Because magic comes from the unmanifest. That's a pretty easy one because it has some social tension. You're actually handing the stuff to someone that's a beggar. Maybe you don't do that. It has magical tension. You're taking real useful dollar bills and getting rid of them. It has everything you need for a magical state, and then it will produce money that will not, in fact, frighten you because it's so big. It's not going to cause your great Aunt Edna to suddenly pass away and leave you something in her will. Right.
Interesting.
Wow, that is an easy one. Now, does it matter what kind of symbols you put on the dollar bill, or do you look for symbols that represent abundance?
You look find what's aesthetically pleasing for you. I tend to use the runes of Anglo-Saxon spruce work because my magical teacher is a guy named Stephen Edward Flowers, who's written, 40 books on rune magic. And I have a background in linguistics, so I like unusual alphabets. And Anglo-Saxon was written in a much nicer alphabet than the Roman one we use right now.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So it can be anything like that.
Whatever,
you can use hieroglyphics. You can use.
Yeah. You can use hieroglyphics. A lot of modern Wiccan groups use an alphabet called Theban. It just needs to be something that's mysterious and appeals to you.
Okay.
Aesthetics is a big part of magic.
That's why we like those pretty sparkly toys. Yeah.
Well, of course, yeah.
Well,
wow.
Where you are, PK, I know you do have people that are begging, right? So you wouldn't have problem finding them. That's for sure.
I don't even have
I'm
to
up
go
in the woods.
Home.
Yeah.
Nope.
You're up in, but I'm up in the woods.
Well, we're 40 miles from the border. Need I say more?
Yeah, really. You've got lots to choose from there, so you could try it and report back on what happens. Very interesting exercise. But I love this concept too about being enchantable. That's so expansive. It's so beautiful.
Yeah, I mean that's the first step to being a magician is have an enchantable life, and then the second step is to be able that when it happens, to totally give yourself over to moments of wonder. Magic is not about practicality. Magic is about goosebumps and catching your breath and saying, "Oh my."
That is terrific. Oh my goodness, I love it. That is just great. I love it. Now, Don, do you have another book coming down the road? Do you have something percolating?
I'm working on a book about magical techniques right now that's probably going to be called Magical Engineering for the 21st Century.
Oh, that sounds great.
The title.
Another great title, yes. Fantastic. Wow. Well, we're going to have you back for that one, that's for sure. That sounds wonderful.
Oh, I would love it.
And now, if somebody wants to get in touch with you, how do they find you?
Probably the easiest way is search for me on Facebook, and you'll find the guy that puts out thousands of pictures of cats. That's me.
All right. That's you. And your last name, I'm going to tell everybody. That's right. It's spelled W-E-B-B, so there's two B's in your last name. And again, everybody, the book is something you really should get, and it's called Your Guide to Becoming a Modern Magus. And Don, thank you so much. I know it's been a recovery for you in not feeling well, and I know you're also taking care of your wife who wasn't feeling well. So again, many thanks for taking the time and energy to share with us tonight. And we hope you both feel better. Continue to be well, stay well.
Definitely. Got to keep you well so you can finish that book.
Yeah.
I know. We got to have you back on and talk about it. That's right.
That's right.
That's darn right. Well done. Thanks again, and please stay well. And everybody, we'll be back next week. We are going to have Kay come back. Kay Randall May. She was just on a few weeks ago, and she's coming back to talk to us about how to communicate with all kinds of entities, as well as your family pet, etc. So that's a show not to be missed. Again, we'll be back next week. And until then, we will see you on the Blue Highway. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.
Thanks for listening. Tune in next week for another radio adventure with Supernatural.